other people. So what do the politicians do? They organize marriage ceremonies, burials, and meet clandestinely. So because the law was that until we ring the bell for commencement of political meetings, don't do it. It has no basis in the democracy as far as I am concerned. So there should not be a period for campaign. If you want to campaign this year for 5 years' time, that's your business.
Incidentally, Kirian, the point that Osaze is making now was one that we raised with the then INEC chairman, Professor Jega. Yes. He was our guest on Good Morning Nigeria, and we're talking about the flag off of formal campaigns for elections. And I drew his attention to one point, and he tended to agree, and this was the point, to say, look, what are the modes of campaigns? For instance, posters and billboards. Billboards don't sprout after INEC has given the go-ahead for the formal commencement of campaigns. Yeah. You have posters. In fact, if you were to see my poster now, say Kingsley for president or Kiran Umayo for president, where those billboards have been out, are they in breach of it or otherwise? So the point you've made is a very valid one, I believe, namely that so forth. And potential candidates find themselves speaking at such rallies, articulating the views and positions of their parties. Kieran?
Specifies a period of time within which one should campaign before an election. The expenses of the previous one engagement of the political party before the stipulation for elections to commence, is it part of the electoral expenses that you consider?
Starts from the day INEC gives notice. Limitation on how much individuals can contribute to political parties. But the limit referred to here is the one by the candidates, starting from the date INEC gives notice of election. So that is clearly defined, so that it doesn't matter whether the party is coming all year round. Secondly, campaign is not defined, neither in the Act nor in regulations or anywhere else. So if I put up a billboard and say, Osaze is the man for the job, is that a campaign? I've not specified any office or any political party, or I've not even asked you to vote for me. Many governors do that quite often, and local government chairmen, and say, this road was constructed by XYZ. One good turn deserves another. Is that a campaign? And guess what?
That's right.
There is no punishment for early commencement of campaign in breach of the law. There's no punishment.
In fact, some governors, incumbent governors in their first step, have their posters and campaign and their billboards all year round. The entire 4 years, before the next election.
Let me ask you this, Barrister. The bill favors the establishment of INEC offices in the FCT, in the states and local government area.
The Constitution has established that.
Now,
yes.
To what extent would that also ensure efficiency on the part of INEC in the discharge of its responsibilities?
Oh, INEC is a national body. It's everywhere. It's not a federal, it's a national body. That's why it's independent national. It's not independent federal commission. It's owned by Nigerians. It's a national body. And the Constitution requires it to have offices in all local governments. And it does have offices, notwithstanding the fact that so many have been destroyed and burnt. But it still has a presence there. INEC now took it a step forward. Now has presence in every ward, almost 10,000, 800 and something wards, by recruiting what they call restaurant area officers. In other words, ward area officers. So they have a presence, and these people are expected to know their localities and be in touch with their localities all year round. So its efficiency will depend on how its tentacles reach out to the grassroots. That's important.
Okay, Osaze, thank you very much. Let's return to Senator Kabiru Gaya in our Kano Network Center. Senator Gaya, I'm sure you listened to the proposition by Samson Itodo. 2 key points. It says, one, let the Senate align its position with that of the House of Reps with regard to the provisions of Section 52, subsection 3. Because in his view, the House of Reps has weighed in more on the side of the constitutional requirement of an independent National Electoral Commission. In other words, let it be the business of INEC to run elections and not subordinate it to NCC or even, for that matter, the National Assembly. That's one point. Second point is it talks about the timeline for the completion of work on the harmonization and transmission to the president so that we can have an act, as it were, rather than still a bill in the crucible.
First of all, thank you. Samson was one of the players or one of the stakeholders during the compilation of the act. He was a member, I think, of the technical committee. But let me clearly say there was nothing wrong in asking NCC to support INEC in giving it the data. Just like when we are doing election, we said the police and SS and all the security agents should be around to support INEC and make sure that we have free, fair, and credible and peaceful election. So when we ask NCC, because we need this data from NCC about the area of coverage, we don't want any polling unit to be shortchanged or people to be shortchanged in this election. So the idea, the idea brought up by the Senate and the proposal that the NCC should now give us the area coverage, which they did come to, even the House members invited NCC and INEC, and to give them data on the area of coverage. So there's nothing wrong in doing a process that will enhance your lawmaking. And this is helping us to enhance our lawmaking. But when it comes to compromise between the House and the Senate, we certainly resolve ourselves to which area is better. Depends on what we, the members of the National Assembly, agreed together when it comes to compromise. And I'm sure we'll come up with a solution to that. To those problems. And I believe because anytime we have conference, certainly at the end of it, we come with one voice, and that is what is needed in the National Assembly. The other issue raised on the issue of independence of INEC, doesn't matter when we ask NCC to guide INEC in that information, because INEC doesn't have that information area covered. They have to go to another stakeholder to give them that information. Just like when you are doing electoral act, there are other issues that we need to go to other areas and pick their professional views in order to enhance the position of our act. So that is one. The other area raised also is on the issue of the issue of finances during elections. As I said earlier, that when you work as elected, and campaigns, let me say clearly, campaigns start the day you are sworn in as a new member, if you really want to come for a second time. Because anytime you go to commission a project, that's also campaign, because you are fulfilling your campaign promises to the people. But what is clearly defined that when I give a guideline, let's go for election, you can now start your campaign, that is when posters, billboard, rallies are conducted for during those times. So there are different times, but sadly, as long as you are voted into office and you want to come back again, you really need to start a campaign from the day you are sworn in as a new elected person. And those who want to come in, is from the day you are voted or from the day they lost primaries. They were now thinking of plans of how they can outsmart you and then win election and come and take over your seat. So I believe there is no limitation on when campaign really starts. But the purpose of campaign rallies and so on starts when INEC say, blow the whistle, say, go ahead and start your campaign. And that's when the expenses is being counted for. But if by the day I was sworn in for the last 3 years, for example, or 2 years plus, I've been going around to my constituencies and I'm spending money in trying to move to that areas, and then also give poverty alleviations, other empowerments and so on. All those things, when I go to those villages, at least people receive me and we talk, we meet, and we discuss issues. And even when we're doing constitution review, we go to our constituency, ask people, tell us what do they want to be put in the constitution for based on their interest and their concern. So I believe the day we win an election, the day, the following day, or even on that day, you start campaigning for the next term.
All right, sir. There's a follow-up on one item, which you have already deliberated on, and that has to do with INEC, subjecting INEC's, part of INEC's responsibility to the scrutiny of NCC. Now, you said you had information from NCC on the issue of coverage in Nigeria. Does it mean that before the next election that the nation will not improve with respect to area of coverage? And now, when it comes to electronic transmission of results, if a result is transmitted, does it require NCC to certify that result, a result of an election it did not conduct? That's why some Nigerians find it to be contravening. You can as well clear us on that. And again, you're also subjecting INEC's results to the scrutiny of the National Assembly. So is it not worrisome? That's why many Nigerians are kicking against your deliberation on that issue.
You may be sorry you got it mixed up. We didn't say NCC should certify or support certify INEC's work. We didn't say that. We said NCC should give us data. Let us tell us how many polling booths in the country we have under network. I mean, that means there is services in those areas. And that could be determined. INEC will give them, these are the areas of my polling booths across the country, and which areas do they have network facilities that we can transmit the result. And secondly, maybe people should understand how this voting machine should be. The electronic voting is a machine that you can use it even if at that location has no network, because it gives you the data based on, because you have been charged with the battery or whatever. It will now show you the symbols of your political parties, and you press a button, you choose. And at the end of the voting at that time, at the ward level, at the polling units level, then the officer will now press a button, and the summary result of all the political parties in that location, or that where election went through, the result will come out and on a piece of paper, and there's a space for every agent to sign. So what we're saying that paper, that result of the election at ward level, is going to be carried to the next polling units. So it's not transmission. We're saying it is just like manual. You do transmission, electronic voting, and the machine will have that records for there forever. And anytime you want to refer it, you can refer it. But taking a paper to the next collation center, signed by agents, which means confirming that that is the result at that polling unit. That's what the machine will do. But when you talk of transmission, then you may have to equip the machine on transmitting. But what our fear on transmission is that you cannot do transmission at locations where there is no network services. So what we're saying is let the network improve. Then you can vote and transmit at that location. Then the issue he raised on giving powers or subjecting powers of INEC to NCC. NCC is not going to supervise our election. NCC is only to let us know that this is the area we have coverage, and they are going to inform and support INEC so that those areas that they have coverage are being maintained by the vendors in those locations, so that during elections we can be able to transmit, to guide the INEC in its own activities, like having a network in those locations, maybe at the local government headquarters. But when you go down to the villages, you find that they don't have network. See, in my area, I have many places, many villages, many polling stations, they don't have network at all. And when we go there, we cannot be able to even use our phone to call anybody in that location. So because that are areas where there is no network. Even in Abuja, you go to some locations, you don't have network. Maybe in Lagos, you may have network in about 90 or 90-something%. But when you come down to Sokoto, Zamfara, Kebbi, you may not have that kind of services like they have in Lagos. So I believe that unless the situations equalize and that there is a balance in network facilities, I think it may not be fair to Nigerians to do electronic transmission, because some of the polling units, you cannot do transmission in those locations, which means some areas do electronic, some areas do manual. And that is different system of election in the whole country. So I believe we'll have uniform process of election in every part of Nigeria, which could be satisfied by Nigerians. I mean, Nigerians can be happy that, yes, this thing we're doing well. I remember when we brought the issue of card reader, most of us in the National Assembly at that time, we rejected the card reader because we are scared of how it's going to work. But when INEC came to the National Assembly, explained to us how this card reader works, we accepted. And the card.
And you are see.
Okay, the distinguished Senator Kabir Gaya is. I mean, you've gained altitude, and it's more interesting now. But we're pressed for time. We have the benefit of the presence of Osaze Uzi with us. I mean, he retired from INEC as a director. He was in charge of legal as well as voter education and publicity. Some of the issues that you have raised, I think that he has some points with regard to the experience of INEC in conducting elections, as well as the independence, which now appears threatened by having recourse to NCC or even National Assembly before INEC can take a decision.
Yes, thank you. INEC is a body established by the 99 Constitution, as amended, Section 153 established INEC. NCC is not a body established by the Constitution. So in that sense, it's an inferior body to INEC. And Section 78, which earlier referred to, of the Constitution gives INEC the power to conduct, supervise, undertake all elections listed. Now, it's wrong to subordinate a constitutional body to a non-constitutional body. That's number one. Number two, in the spirit of consultations, which Senator Gaya, distinguished Senator Gaya referred to, INEC consulted with, worked with NCC, worked with Nigerian ComSat, another government agency. Now, NCC told INEC that time that they had 92% 2G and 3G coverage, 2G, 3G, 4G, in the country. So I'm surprised at these figures that are now being bandied around. 92% coverage. Out of the 129,713 polling units, only about 8,000 were not covered by network. Now, I went to the site of the NCC. MTN, by the way, says they have 88.8% coverage. Now, there's a plan. There's a plan by the NCC and by Government Ministry of Communications. It's on the NCC website, and they claim they achieved almost 75% coverage, network coverage of 3G, which can take all data. That's in the NCC website now. Go there. In the plan 2020 to 2025, they reviewed the earlier plan and said they had 75% 3G coverage, which should be enough to transmit everything. And in any case, every ward in this country, almost 10,000, has network.
Every ward in this country
has network. Again, go to NCC and confirm. And if there's no network, eventually when you get to a coverage area, within 30 minutes drive, the network will drop, the results will drop. So all that does not really work.
But the Senate President was arguing at the weekend that if you do electronic transmission of results, there was a possibility of disenfranchising 50% of potential voters.
The thing is just having a better understanding of how it works, then will help the lawmakers. I'm happy you have cleared this issue now. And again, currently, INEC has even said that they have the capacity to transmit results electronically.
INEC was invited on Friday, but they stood them down. And that is the kind of information that we have given. It was stood down and invited all the NCC.
Okay, let's begin, Honorable Benjamin Kalu, now on some technical issues with respect to the harmonization of the decisions of both houses.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank the great senior colleague here, I'm also a lawyer, who had expressed his acceptance of my explanation. Owing to the misunderstanding before, it was as if I was indicted myself. Thank you very much for understanding that. I have a little problem with some of the issues you raised. One of them had to do with campaign. I agree that campaign in a good democracy is expected to run year in, year out. But there's a difference between marketing yourself and electioneering campaign. And why some of us in the parliament were a bit hesitant with not giving, that free dump for you to do campaign from beginning to the end of a tenure of a particular government is because there is need for cohesion. There is need for loyalty in a government. If you have a campaign running against a government that just came in, there'll be a lot of distraction. The cohesion in the space would not be there. But you can market yourself. It doesn't have to be electioneering. And also when the senator mentioned the project, commissioning, and all the rest of them, those are representative function. You ought to do all those things, and through town hall meetings, let your people know about what you're doing. You could call that marketing. To name it electioneering campaign at that point, I have an issue with that. Now, on the issue of harmonization, Nigerians should know that this is a piece of legislation that is still going from one stage to the other. We have not finalized. It will only be finalized when the president gives his assent. And at this level, because we practice bicameral legislation, if there are, like he mentioned, the senator mentioned, if we have divergent views on some of the clauses, like the 52.2 in our own and 52.3 and 52.3 in their own, we'll have the conference. At that conference, some of these I's will be dotted and the T's will be crossed to enable us to have a piece of legislation.
How soon might we get that done?
Yeah, that's a question that you ask. And you see, though we're on vacation now, but I know there's an understanding between the leadership of both chambers to be able to come in if there's an emergency to consider this. We may not wait till the end of 2 months. there might be need for us to have emergency, conferencing for us to be able to tidy some of these things
Honorable
out.
Benjamin Kallo, we're running out of time. We do appreciate you being with us. House of Reps spokesperson, thank you for being part of our conversation today. Senator Kabir Gaya, Chairman, Senate Committee on INEC, we appreciate you from our Kano Network Center. Samson Itodo, Executive Director, Yaga Africa, via Zoom from the UK. Thanks a lot for your inputs. Oluwole Osaze-Ozie, former INEC Director, deep thanks for being here today. So that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria. We thank you for tuning in. We're back tomorrow, same time, which of course is Ida Kabe. Until then, do take care of yourself and Baraka de Salah in advance. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
Baraka de Salah, I am Kirian Umayo. See you again.